But I don't know why. This is just one of these philosophical questions. What is the advantage of saving the species? Like, if there is such a cataclysmic event. Hey folks, welcome to Trickle Down Philosophy. I'm Don. This is the new channel name. It had been Thinking Theology, but people were getting misunderstandings that it was about establishing theology or defending theology, which it wasn't. It was just about contemplating various ideas, and deep ideas do come from the theological scientific debate. And but I lean heavily toward the scientific side, of course, but I understand the theological side. But all that said, I'm a philosopher by nature. I'm agnostic. I understand atheistic arguments. I've studied a fair amount of science, and I understand a lot of theology. And it's just kind of fun to contemplate different ideas, look at the arguments, see where they're weak, see where they're strong, or see where they're reliable, see where they just make no sense whatsoever, and so on. But I'm taking a look at a video from Valuetainment. An astronomer is talking about Elon Musk's plans to go to Mars, or ideas about colonizing Mars, which I addressed in an appendix in my book from a personality standpoint. What personalities? Let's say we could work the physics, the oxygen, the water, the food, all that stuff out to the extent that we had like a biosphere and all the elements necessary to sustain life from a physical standpoint and a biological standpoint. What about the personalities? What personalities would you put up there? Because it's not like we could shuttle people back and forth readily, because it takes 9 months to get there and 9 months back. So basically, once you get there, you're almost there. You have to be kind of committed to being there. Let's see what this gentleman says about Elon's ideas about going to Mars.
So Elon Musk, okay, he wants to, he's a humanist, right? Yeah. Colonizing on Mars. He's a very smart guy, okay? Clearly. This is not a guy that's just, have 3 shots of tequila and says, hey guys, I'm going to go colonize, and I'm going to have life on Mars, right? Mm-hmm. For somebody as smart as him to say something like that, what are his hurdles of that becoming a reality?
Mars is a very hostile environment to live on. I mean, it's much harder to live on Mars than it is Antarctica, put it like that, right? Antarctica has an atmosphere that we can breathe. That's the most obvious basic thing. Its temperature is actually similar to Mars. It's not that different from Mars, the temperature in Antarctica to Mars.
Really?
So the temperature is very similar, but Antarctica is covered in ice, so you've got plenty of water. So you have access to water, you have breathable air. All you really have to do is wear a coat and some protective gear, and you can survive in that environment. You're not going to survive in Mars under those same conditions. Mars is a place that has no surface liquid water, as far as we can tell. There's ice on the polar caps, but how much we don't truly know. It doesn't have, even the atmospheric pressure is so low that it would kill you, let alone the lack of a breathable atmosphere. And on top of that, it lacks any, there's no boat that can come and save you. Like if you need, infrastructure to be delivered or water or supplies to be delivered quickly, it's just totally inaccessible. It's going to take 18 months or something to get a...
It's like the pioneer people, like in the founding of America and such, or any new continent or somewhere. When you go there, you're like, good Lord, the conditions are horrendous. This is even more difficult, clearly, because there's nobody there to come save you.
The next care package delivered. So it's going to require, it's going to be the greatest survival challenge for humanity.
When you hear him say that, what do you think?
I think it's it's some of my colleagues kind of think it's ridiculous and think it's just totally crazy that we'll ever do this. I've always felt like it was, if someone wanted to spend their own money to try and do it, like all power to them, let them try and do it. I get the philosophy. The philosophy is, as long as we're all on planet Earth, we're at risk. Because all it takes is one giant meteor or one nuclear war or whatever cataclysm you want, and we're all gone. And so if your objective is to preserve the species, then it totally makes sense that you would want to have a second base. And whether that base be on the moon or Mars, I don't really have a strong opinion, but I think there are definitely advantages on Mars because it's a higher surface gravity. It does appear to have a bit more water. The temperatures, there is some atmosphere at least, whereas the moon has no atmosphere at all. So I think but it's further away. So that's another challenge to how do you actually get there in the first place? How do you actually...
Yeah, the moon takes, I think, like 4 days to get to. And even though it's only 250,000 miles away, you don't shoot a rocket straight up at the moon. You've got to shoot it out in a different direction. And Mars takes about 9 months to get to. But I don't know why. This is just one of these philosophical questions. What is the advantage of saving the species? Like, if there is such a cataclysmic event, as he suggested, in this thought experiment that wipes out mankind, but it's like, if your goal is to preserve the species, then having a second location on Mars would do that. Now, would those people come back to Earth at some point and repopulate the Earth because it is far more hospitable? I imagine they would want to, depending on how radioactive or whatever active the Earth is. But my question is, why would we want to preserve the species? And I don't say we should. I don't ask that in a pejorative way or a rhetorical way. I ask that in a very serious way. What is the argument? What is the advantage of saving the species? If something winds up exterminating us, there'll be no record. We won't remember it. It's sort of like the big crunch with the universe when it falls back on itself and then goes back out, or ideas of in a black hole where information just doesn't escape. There's no memory of it. So I like pondering these things.
Service it and have infrastructure go back and forth. But I think it's a cool goal. I don't want to live on Mars. I mean, like I said, would you want to live in Antarctica? Like if someone said, do you want to live in Florida or do you want to live in Antarctica? I don't want to live in Antarctica. And I certainly don't want to live in a place that's even worse than Antarctica, which is Mars. So I have no desire personally to live on Mars. It'd be cool to visit for a week, but it's so far away you can't really do that. So I don't know, all power. If someone wants to try that, go for it. And, people are lining up coast to coast to be the first astronauts to Mars. I think if you put out a call for astronauts for Mars, there'd be no shortage of volunteers who'd be willing to end their life on Mars if that's what it took to go there. And you need people like that to push the envelope. I just don't want to do it myself. And that's where it's like you have to divorce maybe how you feel about something versus someone else putting their life at risk.
Yeah.
If you had the shot of being one of those people to colonize Mars, would you volunteer? You got to figure 9 months. It would get pretty boring. 9 months in a capsule, getting there. Then you set it up. That might be the exciting / scary part. And then anything goes wrong, communication takes from the furthest distance Mars is from Earth, it takes about 20 to 22 minutes for a radio signal to reach Earth, when Earth is on one side of the sun and Mars is on the other. And the closest distance is somewhere around 4.5 to 5 minutes when we're both on the same side of the sun and nearest each other. But still, even emergency communication is impossible because the speed of light is a constant. But all that said, if you had the chance to do it, would you do it? I would seriously consider it. Just at a certain point in life, and if you have a certain screw loose, you certainly would consider it. Leave your answer in the comments. I'm curious to see how you guys would respond.
Any desire to go into space or no?
I'd love to go to space. Yeah, I'd love to do a cruise in orbit, see the Earth from space. It's been a dream of mine since a kid, but only as a paying probably tourist, I expect that to happen, and I would be okay with that if it became something where you could spend $10,000-$20,000, go up, do a few orbits.
Nothing to be out there for a year and explore, and as a big project, that's not something.
No, I mean you've seen these Starliner astronauts there, which are stuck there at the moment.
Yeah, the Boeing one. I saw that. The lady and the guy.
Yeah, so
probably
Sunny Williams.
25 January, they'll be able to come back.
I know. Well, they're probably stuck there till February. It looks like at this point, which is
stranded in space. NASA doesn't see the
we're in
Starliner
February, and they're not back yet.
NASA doesn't say
they don't like that word. Yeah, but I think they are kind of stuck there for the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, but they seem pretty chill about it. They don't seem like.
Well, they're trained for that. They're trained.
So let me ask you this question. So do you think man landed on the moon?
Yeah, 100%.
You're saying 100%. Tell me why you say 100%.
Because we can see from you look at imaging of the surface of the moon. So you have like these orbiters which are currently going around the moon. Again, you can download the data. Anyone can download the data. This NASA public data policy that we have. And you
I
can
didn't know
download that
that.
data and you can see the tracks of the rovers, of the astronauts as they drove around. And you can line them up to the video footage of them driving around the surface. You can see the landers. You can see, the infrastructure that was left there. There's even mirrors that were put on the surface of the moon. It's called the laser ranging experiment. And they left these mirrors there, and we actually bounced lasers off the surface of the moon, off these mirrors. And using that, we can measure how far away the moon is. Every day we could do that. So we can measure how far away is the moon today. And we've been doing that for the last few decades. And as a result, we know that the moon is receding away from us at about 1 inch per year, about 4 centimeters per year. And this is due to the tides that the moon raises on the Earth and dissipates energy through the tidal action on the planet. So this is actually, one of the most amazing experiments, I think. It's actually now getting...
Wait a tick. The energy is dissipating on Earth due to the tidal action. Well, I knew energy in the sun was dissipating due to the conversion of hydrogen to helium, and about 4 million tons per second in the sun radiate out into space in the form of light and heat and so on. And so the sun is losing mass with E equals mc squared, mass times the speed of light squared, and so on. The sun is losing mass and its gravitational pull is weakening. And I think Earth is moving about 6 inches per year away from the sun. But the moon is moving about 1 inch a year, he said, away from Earth. Wow. Now, I think we might be moving a foot a year away from the sun. Nonetheless, it's imperceptible to us on planet Earth in our lifetime.
Quite dusty. They can also tell from the lasers the response time is not only getting longer, but the amount of light returning is diminishing. So they can tell that dust is slowly accumulating on these mirrors, and even infer from that the micrometeorite rate that's happening on the moon. So when you look at all the amazing stuff we can do, there's obviously moon rocks that we have. We know about the origin of the moon from the moon rocks. We took those moon rocks that the Apollo astronauts brought back. We measured the isotopic ratio of oxygen 18 to oxygen 16 from those rocks. And by looking at that oxygen isotope ratio, we were able to tell that it was identical to that of the Earth. And that was obviously there's many of the differences in the rocks, but that particular ratio was identical. And that told us that the moon used to be a part of the Earth, which is pretty wild. So actually the origin of the...
That was a theory that floated about 50 years ago. My elementary school teachers and middle school teachers all poo-pooed that whole idea that the moon broke off from the Earth. And now he's bringing this back. I'd always dismissed it as kind of like a kid-like fantasy that a friend we would just bandy about. But now, because of the oxygen in the soil is identical, now we're theorizing that the moon was part of the Earth? Wow.
The moon was that it was at one point in its history part of the Earth.
What happened?
Right? So this is called the giant impact hypothesis. So it's thought that when the Earth first formed, it was actually larger than it is today. Would have been maybe we call it a super Earth. And it was this big ball of molten lava. And there was this episode in the history of the solar system called the Late Heavy Bombardment that we believe happened. We can see that because we see Mercury's been covered in meteors. We can see lots of evidence from simulations of looking at how Jupiter moves through the solar system. So we have lots of evidence that there was this late heavy bombardment. And basically, there was just a lot of crap around, just a lot of stuff moving around the solar system. Yeah. And this Mars-sized planet that we call Theia, a Mars-sized planet, drifted too close to the Earth, or the super Earth, smashed into it. And that Mars-sized planet basically totally vaporized. It was destroyed in totality, but it knocked off a huge chunk of the Earth. And that huge chunk is what formed the moon.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. But I mean, how did the moon become round? Because if you blast something off, it would be fragmented like that. So maybe over the billions of years, things have bombarded it and it made it round. I don't know how you would do that, but this space stuff is fascinating. And about the colonization of Mars, that's just been fascinating to me, especially since I focused on it as part of my book called Through Lines, The Life of Your Personality, in which I depict 9 different personality types that comprise the human race. 7 of which are on the positive side of the ledger in varying degrees of social skills and such. And 2 are on the negative side of the ledger. And in that, I just talked about if you could play God in the Garden of Eden, for example, or if you're an atheist, you could play Elon. That's how I said it in the book. And pick the people that you would have there based on the 9 personality types. How would you allocate or assign those personalities if we're going to send 50 people on the first journey to Mars? If we had a ship big enough, 50 people, how would you apportion which personality types would be there? And so I love the physics behind it and the science behind getting us there. But then you've got the interpersonal dynamic, that what type of people do you want there to start this new civilization? You don't want a bunch of narcissists. You don't want them, what have you. You want people who are thoughtful. You want people who care about others. But how would you, as a thought experiment, assemble those 50 people? So it's a fantastic thought experiment, the idea of colonizing Mars that goes beyond just getting oxygen, food, and water. But that obviously is necessary, but in a sense insufficient condition to colonize Mars. So, all right, guys, subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for playing along this far, and we'll go from there. Have a great day. See you on another video, and keep with trickle-down philosophy. Hey, folks, if you want to take the personality test that I created for my life coaching practice, which is based on the book that I wrote, put your phone up, turn it on camera, and focus on this, and it'll take you to it. And it'll take you about 20 minutes to complete the test. It's free, and you'll get some information on your personality. It's quite detailed, quite revealing. It's kind of fun as well. And I'll be leaving this QR code up on the wall behind me for my regular videos. So I hope you take it, and I hope you enjoy it.